All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. This is Pastor Dow, and this is Biblical Israel, Part 9. Starting off with the history of the Greeks. Well, we had the Babylonians, which took some 14,000 from the tribe of Judah into captivity. And of course, before that, then we had the Assyrians, which took some 200,000 Israelites into captivity. And of course, that pretty much decimated and left the land desolate, with exception of a few poor people, which these ruling empires decided to leave in the land to be vine dressers. What had happened is that other nations, seizing the opportunity of the Israelites being taken from their land, they begin to squat in the land and begin to occupy. And of course, this is a nation of Edomites that have done that with as well as the surrounding heathens. Then Josephus gives a good historical account of all of this, as well as the scriptures does, more than anything. And this is, of course, something that is not taught too well either, because a lot of people don't understand the relationship between Coseba and Yehuda. And we'll go on that to a later time. The Persians begin to decline like all empires does over a period of time, simply because debauchery, the lack of any morals or morality, or whatever you want to call it, people just, they become lax. If you're going to conquer a people, conquer a land, you better believe that there's always somebody waiting in the background, waiting in the shadows to conquer you. And so what we've had going on here in the angles of history, which the scriptures or the Bible is the best history book that there is after the Persians begin to get lax and stuff, the Greeks come into power. Now, the Greeks had a general or commander in history unlike anybody has ever seen before on this earth. He was a Macedonian, and his name was called Alexander the Greek. I understand that history called him Alexander the Great. I don't see nothing great about it. So anyway, the Greeks begin to take all those lands, including the seaports, merchant camps, and everything else, and sites and stuff, and they begin to expand their empire. It was in the mind of Alexander the Greek, in which he did too, after he come down to the indigenous people of the lands of the east and the lands of the south, to spread his seed through his armies and to begin to whitewash. A lot of people that had that woolly hair, this is how that a lot of the Arab nations and other people begin to actually lose some of their hue of their skin. And this is how many of their hair that was curly end up becoming straight, is because of the siege of the Greeks, or the seed of Japhet, which you would read over in the Tables of Nations in Genesis, the 10th chapter. You will see that this was the first time in history where the seed of Japhet actually ended up intermingling with the seed of Ham and the seed of Shem. And this is where we get this Alexander the Greek, the Macedonian. And actually, he wasn't a Greek, he was a Macedonian, but he was still one of the greatest commanding generals that the world has ever known. As I said, one of them. Genghis Khan was the other. And of course, Caesar, who actually got killed and murdered by his own people as well. And we can go on and on and on and on. Solomon had the greatest rest and greatest peace of all the Israelite kings, simply because of the love that King Dawid, or you commonly call him David, had for the father, and the favor that the father showed towards him. Alexander the Greek died along about the age of 33, and he died of a venereal disease because, they had a particular disease conducive to the Caucasians who came out of the Caucasus Mountains. And I know most of you people don't like to hear all this stuff, but nevertheless, rather than, being a bigot, it's best for you to just go back and actually check out all these things and do your own due diligence, you're going to find out that the history that this country has presented to you, especially through religion, has all been a forest and a lie. Biting of the fruit of lies is a very painful thing, especially when you have the stomach to embrace the truth. Alexander the Greek, or the Macedonian Alexandria, what he did was, after he passed away, 4 generals came into being, came into play, and they all put crowns on their heads. You can understand the history of what has happened with these Greeks when you go into the books of the Apocrypha. Because it's amazing, all of a sudden, the Old Testament ends with Malachi, with the Persians ruling. And it begins in Matthew at the time of Christ with the Romans in place, entrenched and in place and ruling hard. But there's a great big gap in history, and that just happens to be the history of the Greeks. Now, we need to ask ourselves a question. Why is the history of the Greeks covered up? I mean, after all, the Catholic Bible has the Apocrypha, or the Apocrypha is called the hidden books, in it. And the 1611 King James Version of the scriptures, or the Bible, had the Apocrypha books in it. I have a facsimile copy of the 1611 King James Version of the Bible at home in my residence. We begin to, we've got to start asking ourselves a bunch of questions. Why is it so prevalent of this colonialism, these people who are, the white rulers of the earth today? What is it about history that they have to paint their images on every single icon, on every single hieroglyphic, and try to whitewash everything? They use science to try to do it in everything. Why come they just cannot, or how come they cannot just leave things the way that they were and just go forward? What is it about this country or this people or this culture that they have to diminish and change the historical facts and perspective and point of view of antiquity? We have some serious questions that need to be answered. Now, I have the answers to all of those questions I just got finished asking. But I tell you what, this colonialism and this conquering and ruling is going on today. The philosophy of Alexander the Greek has been adopted by the modern day kingdom of Europia, that's commonly called Europe, or the European Union. I mean, after all, you may get deceived, and you may love being fleeced and lied to, thinking that these people of these Caucasus Mountains actually have the best interests of other nations in mind, and they are really truly interested in the atrocities that other nations do to their people. I'm thinking, man, I think independently. I'll usually ask myself the question, if that was the case, then why come America didn't go over and start blowing the hell out of China? When you go back and look at Tiananmen Square, why is it that there are certain nations can get by with committing all types of atrocities and injustices against their people, and we do nothing about it? But all of a sudden, we are interested in the Afghans, we're interested in Iraq, we're interested in Iran, and I'm gonna say it once, I said it again. Saudi Arabia, I'm telling you, if you haven't learned from history, you cannot sit down at the table, make agreements, and shake hands with people of such character and nature as people of the United States of America and Great Britain. If you don't believe me, let's just look at history. Look at what happened. Clearly look at what happened to Germany, who used to be best friends with America. And look what happened to them when they sat down at the table. Look at what happened in Vietnam and all the lies that was told about it. Look what happened with Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. Look what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. And look what is happening right now to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad as the European Union continues to keep putting tariffs and sanctions against Iran today. And if you think for 1 minute, any of you nations out there, especially Saudi Arabia, that the United States of America does not have you in the crosshairs, you have no further than to go to look at the so-called American Indians. Anybody who sits down and try to negotiate with any politician of this country right here, it's only a matter of time before your throat gets slit. They raise up a coup within your land. And that's what they do. And they actually use the special forces to go in to find common ground amongst the leaders of the land. And in that finding a common ground, once they get your agreement, then they turn around and have them to turn on each other. And the insurrection and the sedition starts because of heresies. And the next thing you know, the CIA and the FBI has already done moved in so much, now they're running the country. And now the United States of America has people set up, puppeteers in these government. Look at Iraq and look at Egypt right now, puppeteers. You got to ask yourself, what happened to Chavez? All of a sudden he was in fine health. Next thing you know, he's dead. How in the world they get to him? Whatever way it was, they got to him though, didn't they? And then again, Germany, you still are feeling the wrath of the deceitful hand of the United States of America when you can't get back your gold until the year 2020. And it's really dismal then if you expect to get it back, because if you can't get your gold back now, and it was so-called stored in our reserve system, that's telling you something. I don't care what this dog and pony and circus that they're playing, there's no gold there. Back to biblical history. Well, all of a sudden, we in with Malachi with the Persians. Now we over here fully entrenched at the time of Christ's time, the Romans, but the history of the Greeks is missing. That's where the Apocryphal books comes in and help bridge the gaps. Now, what is it about these Greeks that had in common the same thing that the Babylonians and the Assyrians had? Why, they all had one thing in common. That was to sack the Hebrews. That was actually to destroy their temple. And of course, you can better see it on the Ark of Titus in Rome right now, what actually carried off the furniture of the temple. But it started with the Greeks. And these two are fused together as one people. That's why it's called the Greco-Roman Empire. And so now we have, at the times of Christ, we have finally the seed of Japhet comes up on the scene. And now Yahweh is using the seed of Japhet as a whooping post against his people, because the Israelites, the ancient Hebrew Israelites, did not take heed of the warning of the prophet Jeremiah, which you commonly call Jeremiah, nor did they pay attention to Yesaiah, which is commonly called Isaiah, and nor did they pay attention to Ezekiel. And it's just a sad, sad thing, or Ezekiel. They did not pay attention to any of these prophets right here. So, since Israel wanted to be like the nations, Yah gave them over to the nations, but they first had to have a good butt whooping. Now we are totally assimilated as Gentiles, uncircumcised in heart, heathens. And now all of a sudden, the very nation that we find ourselves in captive to, that have taken our libraries, our books, our temples, and our records, they have translated and transliterated our Torah scrolls and our scriptures into their own languages. And they have definitely imposed their doctrine on today. So it's any wonder that people can even find any faith. That's why the scriptures clearly say that it's the glory of Yah to conceal a matter, but it's the honor of kings to search it out. If you want to be a king going forth in this time, you're going to have to become a student of the scriptures and not believe in the things that your captors, through colonialism, has lied to you and given you their version of what they call the scriptures. That's the reason why this world don't make sense and things are so turned upside down. So what's happening right now? Well, I'll tell you exactly what's happening right now. Knowledge is being increased. Yahweh has not forgotten his people that he has foreknew. Now knowledge is being increased. Israel, Judah, Benjamin, and Levite, including the tribes of Israel, are rising up all across this earth. They are again regaining a knowledge of self, and the nations are going to do everything that they can to make sure that the envy of Ephraim and Judah stays right where it's at. So what am I saying in this? It's time for all of us who are real true biblical Israelites. It's time for us to stop all the envying, the warring, and the fighting. Somebody has got to lead this thing. Somebody has got to be able to come forth and lead this thing and show that they have been sent by Yah and the approval of Yah through signs and wonders, just like Moshe. That's the pattern. Somebody is that leader, and then there are a group of elders that can lead the people. Yahweh said in the prophet Jeremiah in 3:15 that I will give you pastors according to my heart, which will feed you with knowledge and understanding. That's where we're at today. And that's who I am. I'm Pastor Dow. I'm not here to be able to get all of Israel, but only those who have the ears to hear. Makes no difference to me. But nevertheless, Christians are not going to be saved. Islam is not going to be saved. Muslims are not going to be saved. This salvation, this deliverance is only for Israel. And all Israel shall be saved. We'll come back with part 10 here in just a little while. Shalom.